Telecommunication Services aids rescue of more kidnapped victims in Zamfara State.
African Development Bank to invest over $500 million in Nigeria's agro-processing zones.
Reduce the amount of losses you have, create more competitive value chains, transform the rural areas from zones of economic misery.
African First Ladies arrive Abuja for the 9th General Assembly of the African First Ladies Peace Mission.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss the fallout of the Nigeria International Partnership Forum.
All around the globe, countries are still recovering from the economic downturn precipitated by the COVID-19 pandemic, and steps are being taken by different nations to stimulate economic buffers, including attracting foreign direct investment. Kinsley.
That's right, Jumai. Now, Nigeria is in the league of countries already wooing foreign investors in a bid to revamp the economy. Now, on the sidelines of the Paris Peace Summit, which President Muhammadu Buhari attended recently, the Nigerian government organized the Maiden Nigeria International Partnership Forum to showcase Nigeria's immense economic potentials to the world.
Yes, immense, economic potentials that we have in the country. And the forum in attendance had political and business leaders from Nigeria and France. And the keynote address, President Buhari set the tone by telling the forum that Nigeria is open for investments, highlighting the measures that have been taken by his administration to ensure the ease of doing business in the country.
Now, the forum, according to the information we have, had no fewer than 10 Nigerian ministers in attendance. And there were also plenary sessions where the ministers spoke about the opportunities available in the various sectors of the Nigerian economy. And these opportunities, of course, include those in oil and gas, banking, agriculture, the creative industry, telecommunications, digital economy, and transportation.
Quite a lot, Kinsley. And the Group Managing Director of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited, Mele Kyari, was also at the forum to explain the myriad of opportunities that have been created by the passage of the Petroleum Industry Act, and also clear misconceptions about the PIA, that is the Petroleum Industry Act.
Now, with the impressive participation of the Nigerian and French business communities at the inaugural Nigeria International Partnership Forum, it is expected that the event will, in the long run, yield results in terms of viable investments in different sectors of the economy.
And now, what are the takeaways from the Nigeria International Partnership Forum? Is the forum an entity? Has it come to stay? Well, we will have guests that will speak to the issues later in our conversation segment. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria. I am Jumai Yusuf.
And I am Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague Jumai to also welcome you to the program live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, in the course of the program, we'll bring you our complimentary segments, and these include newspaper review and business. For now, here is our colleague Noline Belame, who has the highlights of the morning news. Good morning, Noline.
Good morning, Kingsley and Jumai. Good morning, Nigeria. Here is the news. The African Development Bank is investing $563 million for the establishment of special agro-processing zones in Nigeria. President of the bank, Akinwumi Adesina, disclosed this when he visited Governor Abdullahi Umar Ganduje in Kano.
Reduce the amount of losses you have, create more competitive value chains, transform the rural areas from zones of economic misery to zones of economic prosperity, and to increase the amount of resources that the states have.
More African First Ladies and other delegates have arrived at Abuja for the summit of the 9th General Assembly of the African First Ladies Peace Mission. The First Lady of Nigeria, Aisha Buhari, was at the presidential wing of the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport to receive them.
In 1997, this organization, African First Ladies Peace Mission, was actually inaugurated. And the major aim of this organization for the African First Ladies is to promote peace and also to encourage more conflict resolution in the African continent.
And talking security, more than 540 kidnapped victims, including 95 students, have regained freedom within the past 2 months of a telecommunication shutdown in Zamfara State. Governor Bello Muhammad, who stated this at the swearing-in ceremony of some public officers in Gusau, announced the immediate reopening of 7 major livestock markets across the state.
The government has so far been able to rescue a total of 544 abductees from the bandits. Series of arrests of suspected bandits and their collaborators were made across the 14 local government councils. The recovery of thousands of arrested cattle from the bandits.
Elsewhere, the Force Commander Multinational Joint Task Force Major General Abdul Khalifa Ibrahim played a host to a joint delegation from the French military intelligence led by Vice Admiral Denis Bertrand and United States Africa Command AFRICOM led by Brigadier General Rose Kiravui. The force commander commended U.S. and France for their stabilizing role in Africa. A statement by Colonel Mohamed Dole, the Chief of Military Public Information, Multinational Joint Task Force Headquarters in Jamina, Chad, says the joint delegation were urged by the force commander to explore ways of further supporting the joint operations. That's the news for now. Good morning. Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Jumai after this break. I am Nolin Ebelame.
I'm project supervisor of the second Niger Bridge project. The second Niger Bridge project is a project that has been conceived for a very long time, but it has finally come to life during this present administration. This project has a lot of socio-economic benefits, and it has impacted positively on the lives of the host communities, both in Anambra State and Delta State. The people are very happy. The host communities, they partnered with us because apart from the social benefits, indigenes are also employed on this project. We can see how their lives are being improved.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The Nigerian Communications Commission, in exercise of its functions under the Nigerian Communications Act 2003, has published the final information memorandum for the upcoming auction of the 3.5 GHz spectrum band and stakeholders' responses to comments on the information memorandum as part of its 5G technology deployment plan on November 10, 2021. Stakeholders are by this notice invited to peruse these 2 documents, indicating the start date of receipt of applications for the auction. The documents are to be found on the Commission's website at www.ncc.gov.ng. The attention of stakeholders is drawn particularly to Section 1 of the Information Memorandum. Further to the above, winners of the auction are required to make final payment by February 25, 2022. All applications to participate at the auction must reach the Commission on or before Wednesday, November 24, 2021, and should be addressed to the Executive Vice Chairman, Nigerian Communications Commission, Plot 423 Aguiyi-Ironsi Street, Maitama, Abuja. Executive Vice Chairman and Chief Executive NCC, Professor Omar Garba Ambata Nausa.
NCC.
Connecting Nigeria.
How to make a perfect bowl of love? A perfect blend of taste that brings every ingredient to life. The fusion of different spices. The unique aroma that rejuvenates your senses. The heartwarming deliciousness. And the satisfaction that comes from every bite, which makes you say, I love my Indomie.
My son has always dreamt of being in the spotlight. That's why I give him Bornvita for everyday vitality that gives him the strength.
When times are tough, we know that as a mother, one thing you should never compromise on is your family's oral health, because they deserve the best. Oral-B, all-round protection. It's great value. It protects your mouth from harmful bacteria and also protects you against tooth holes and gum problems, which can lead to tooth loss. It strengthens your family's teeth and gives them all-round protection. So remember, protect their future. Oral-B for healthier, stronger teeth in just 1 week.
Big day ahead.
New Ovaltine 3-in-1. Smart choice for smart kids.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. On business news, World Bank estimates diaspora remittance into Nigeria at $17.6 billion in 2021, representing 2.5% increase from $17.2 billion recorded in 2020. Let's join Alika Okpanachi Arua for details of these and other business news.
The bank gave this projection in a report titled Migration and Development Brief 35, attributing the moderate increase in Nigerians' diaspora remittances to increasing influence of policies intended to channel inflows through the banking system. Meanwhile, retirees of wound-up agencies are being owed 90 billion naira arrears by the federal government. This is coming from the Pensions Transitional Arrangement Directorate, PTAD. At a workshop of pension correspondents in Abuja, the Directorate disclosed that the biometric verification number, BVN, has been a game changer in addressing infractions such as ghost beneficiaries from the system.
It is our intention to foster the already robust relationship between PTAD and the media, correct all misrepresentations, distortions, and evasion, and inform them of the next steps we intend to take as we work hard to ensure that the welfare of our pensioners is sustained.
With business news, Alika Okpanachi Arua.
Many thanks, Alika, for the business package on Good Morning Nigeria. Coming up next for us is newspaper review.
And our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Tiobi, is in the studio. Good morning, Bayo.
Good morning, Jume. Good morning, Kinsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
Hi, Bayo. Good to see you. I hope you had a pleasant weekend.
Yes, I did.
He looks rested.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, Kinsley is looking sleepy still. Well, let's begin with the Punch newspaper.
Bayo should look rested, and you know, we saw what happened to the Man U coach yesterday.
Well, that should not be the cause of my restfulness.
Are you happy that Gunnar Solskjaer is gone?
The players always do the play, and the coaches always take the
blame.
The end of the sword.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, this is probably a sarcastic remark. I think the former Man United coach can seek a job as the Super Eagles coach, where he will be assured of lifetime employment. Win or lose.
Already there are speculations that there is a Serbian on the queue to become the Super Eagles coach. That has not been confirmed.
No, it's not been confirmed. You know, Raw has been there. I don't know what his performance is to continue to retain him.
Dismal performance,
Big
actually.
time.
Well, let's go to the paper review this morning. And we start with the Punch newspaper. And above the masthead, we have short-term loans, orders push banks' assets to 58.51 trillion naira. You find details on page 30. Federal government rehabilitates 15,000 terrorists, 366 soldiers, policemen killed in 2 years. Details on page 2. Invading Cameroonian rebels came by boat. That's coming from Taraba Community Residence. You find details on page 3. Experts blame 2023 elections for 4.1 trillion naira rise in recurrent expenditure. That's on page 27, attributed to the Minister of Finance and National Development. And by the side piece of the Punch newspaper, Fantami's governorship bid posters handiwork of ministers' detractors. You find details on page 18. Afe Babalola faults NUC's inaction on illegal universities, says damage huge. Details on page 3. And then we have the headlines coming from the Punch newspaper. 90 ships seized by EFCC rot away in Lagos. Orders. With 2 kickers, no budgetary provision for Navy to maintain seized forfeited ships. Some of the vessels being managed by third parties pay rent to EFCC. You find all the details on page 2. And the picture story you see there, Zenith Bank 2021 light-up ceremony in Ajose at Adeogun Street, Victoria Island, Lagos on Saturday. Lagos approves 135 private hospitals for COVID-19 vaccinations, says 6,000 naira fee. You find details on page 16. Gombe Monarch mourns as death toll in convoy crash rises to 3. Details on page 13. Bauchi communities barricade highway, protests alleged ejection by military. You find that on page 42. At the bottom plate of the Punch newspaper, 19.3 billion naira saga. Kogi alleges EFCC doing hearted job, issues 48-hour ultimatum. Details on page 3. Family beats ransom to 10 million for Jonathan ex-AIDS brother. 7 victims rescued. Page 4. Carry out your normal activities Monday, Ohaneze tells transporters orders. Details on page 3. Kingsley.
Thank you. Let's also take a look at the front page of the Nation newspaper from above the name flag. You have the following headlines. Nigerians stranded abroad over expired passports. Nigerians stranded abroad over expired passports. That's on page 29. Prosecute illegal varsity operators. Afe Babalola tells NUC. And then below the nameplate, you have the following headlines. CBN rule bars BVN violators from opening bank accounts. And the leaked story says INEC awaits president's action on electoral act. Agency neutral on direct primary. ACF chieftain urges Buhari to sign bill. Malami and DSS, that's the kicker, as Zakzaki's passport not in our custody. SEC leader and wife seek 4 billion naira compensation. No more sit at home, says Ohaneze. Page 7, fire raises Kano varsity officers. Page 8.
Yeah, we still have the Al Jazeera Nigeria, and let's look at it. 16 trillion naira NDDC funds. Serap sues Buhari over looters. Says audit report overweighs any considerations to withhold information. You find details on page 8. My escape from Boko Haram, deal with God. Chibok girl. Agric fund diversion to attract 5-year jail. That's coming from the CBN. Details on page 12. COVID-19, FG yet to work on my cure. That's attributed to a researcher. You find details on page 23. Bafarawa retires from politics after 45 years. Details on page 12. Davido's 250 million donation to orphanages excites Timmy Frank. You find details on page 2. NSAS, U.S. threatens to halt military aid. You find details on page 8. Bio.
Thank you, Jume. Well, an unspecified number of travelers are feared to have been abducted again along Kaduna-Abuja highway on Sunday. The Daily Trust reports that there was a video that showed vehicles that were abandoned in the middle of the highway. A clip on video on social media had indicated how somebody was lamenting and saying, "Oh my God, they have carried our friends. We are just coming from Kaduna," and that was about 3:30 yesterday. The former governorship aspirant in Zamfara governorship election has been reported shot dead. The man was said to have been a former director of protocol in the FCC. He was killed when bandits blocked the Kaduna-Abuja highway about 3:30 p.m. yesterday. Criminals were said to have operated unchallenged over an hour. Early in January, the Nigerian Army announced the deployment of 300 female soldiers to curb criminality along Kaduna-Abuja highway. Governor Nasir El-Rufai and his deputy Hadiza Balarabe received the initial 100 soldiers that were then deployed. The governor then remarked that what a man can do, a woman can most often do better, adding that that is why we have a female deputy governor. With the 3-day warning strike by the Nigerian Railway Corporation, the convoy and the traffic on the Kaduna-Abuja highway increased, and then we now have these consequences. In Sokoto State, an air interdiction operation has neutralized several bandits around Isa and Sabon area of Sokoto State. In a sustained raid carried out on Friday, one of the targets was the notorious bandit who is known as Bokolo. He and his lieutenants were said to have been caught up in an operation while they were meeting. His mother and wife were also said to be probable victims. They are not certain whether he himself was caught out in the raid that targeted his cohorts who were meeting in a location. The operations were carried out by a joint effort of the 8th Division of the Nigerian Army, the Air Force, the police, and the state departments. Locals are said to be cooperating with the security, and they are reporting about movements of bandits to the security. They say that many of the bandits were actually neutralized, and several of them have escaped with gunshot wounds. And in Lagos, a lecturer and a student of Michael Otedola College of Primary Health Education have been reported killed in separate incidents. The lecturer, identified as Ahmed Sahid, was reported killed around Puka town in Ekwe. The student, also identified as Razak Bakari, was shot dead on campus. The traditional ruler of the area, Obabatunde Ogunlaja, has called for the management of the college to establish closed-circuit television cameras on the campus. He has also called on the Commissioner of Police, Hakim Odumusu, to deploy more security to the Noforija area town where the incident happened. He also called on Governor Sanwo-Olu to please help them to reconstruct the collapsed fence of the institution. There's a report that Jumai and Kingsley read about comments from Are Afe Babalola, who called on the National Universities Commission to sanction illegal universities by forfeiting their property and the founder, and also sentencing them to imprisonment for collaborators. He said that the NUC had announced 54 illegal universities in the year. The following year, they announced another set of illegal universities, and apparently nothing has been done about it. He spoke during the 10th convocation ceremony of the Afe Babalola University. He also lamented that there are members of the National Assembly who he described as what they've been establishing one subject universities in members' constituencies, and also unconstitutional state universities by governors in their areas. He challenged the National Universities Commission to ensure that the criteria and conditions laid down for universities are followed strictly. And at the convocation ceremony held on Sunday, 21st November has been set out every year as a convocation day. And their policy is that you know the day you start, and 21st of November, 3 years later, depending upon the nature of your course, you will graduate. So the convocation 21st November fell on Sunday, and they held the convocation yesterday. At the ceremony, honors, doctorate degrees were conferred on the Ooni of Ife, the Ewi of Ado-Ekiti, the Emir of Ilorin, and Governor Babagana Zulum. In his remark, Governor Zulum said The university is only 10 years, but when he went around, the infrastructure he saw there is like university has been established for over 100 years. Governor Fayemi also remarked that the university has become a tourist attraction. And not only so, but it is also offering a medical tourism for persons who want very high medical care.
Okay, well, if you recall, this story about Nigerians being stranded abroad over expired passports. You recall late last week, I drew attention to it that there had been reports. Now it's been highlighted again by the Nation newspaper on its front page. And the simple question will just be, from the data that Nigerian embassy officials gather, how many Nigerians are in need of new passport booklets? How many Nigerians? Are they up to 1 million? Are they up to 500,000? Are they up to 250,000 or 100,000? And what is the challenge in printing booklets and distributing them to Nigerians who have applied for them or who might need them at any point in time? If you recall, I was talking about Belize. The report is giving an account here to say that because Nigeria doesn't have a mission in Belize, Nigerian officials traveled from Jamaica to Belize 6 months ago to interview applicants for fresh passport booklets. And since then, nobody has heard any word from the Nigerian officials. You call them, nobody answers their phones. You send messages, nobody responds. I'm sure you must have seen a video that also circulated some years ago, a few years ago, not some years ago now, about Nigerian students who traveled from one faraway province to come to Ottawa, where you had the capital of Canada. Yes. And they got there, they said the embassy or the Nigerian High Commission was closed on that day. No prior notification, nothing whatsoever. So you came there, you were left on your own. The simple question is, look, is a passport as tedious to produce as a Nigerian currency?
No. There's this sad story about rape. A professor at the Alex Ekweme University has been arrested for allegedly defiling a 12-year-old pupil. The pupil live with the father, and the father is the security man to the professor. And you can imagine, a whistleblower brought the case accusing the professor of geophysics, of constantly sexually abusing the daughter of his gateman. The girl said he reported to the father, and the father could not do anything. So she now reported to her auntie at the school, and it has been taken up. The professor himself has a wife who is also a professor in another university, and he has children who, some of them are PhD holders, and he's busy defiling a 12-year-old girl, the daughter of his security guard.
This is sickening.
In fact, the Commissioner of Police, Ebonyi State, Mr. Aliu Garba, has ordered a discreet investigation, and the suspect has been arrested.
Yes, well, I'm looking at this Lagos approves 130.
It's a pedophile. That's from the facts that you have stated. Yes. Is he a pedophile? Well, unfortunately, the part of the brain that works as a geophysicist doesn't discipline him. And so the law has to discipline him.
Indeed.
How swiftly so.
Let's quickly go to Lagos. 6,000 naira fee for COVID-19 vaccine. I thought it's free.
Well, the COVID-19 vaccination is free when you go to government facilities. To be able to meet the wider coverage, this COVID-19 vaccination now has now been extended to recognize private hospitals where you can go and take them. But I'm shocked to hear that the cost is as high as 6,000 naira.
No, that's too much.
I wouldn't know. Yesterday, the remains of the last white president of South Africa were cremated at a private funeral service held for him in South Africa. I'm referring to F.W. de Klerk. F.W. de Klerk was the last apartheid president, and right now there is no former South African apartheid leader, that's to say president or prime minister, who is alive. Before F.W. de Klerk, he had P.W. Botha, who himself is late, and Hendrik Verwoerd, B.J. Vorster and Hendrik Verwoerd, and several others after apartheid was formally declared in 1948. I found it a bit strange in the revisionism of the role of F.W. de Klerk. It's like it's caught between a rock and a hard place. It's like the role he played in ensuring the end of apartheid is sometimes not fully appreciated. On the one hand, and on the other hand, he's also been accused of betraying his white tribe. If you recall, he was a joint Nobel Peace Prize winner with Nelson Mandela in 1993. But the truth, in my opinion, speaking from the benefit of hindsight, I was a correspondent in that region. At the time, F.W. de Klerk emerged as first acting state president in January 1989, when P.W. Botha suffered a stroke. And then, of course, he ensured that the leaders of the National Party kept P.W. Botha out of office. And then he accelerated the pace for the deconstruction of apartheid. And there was a comment he made at that time. He said that, look, white South Africans, at least those who were in political authority, came to the realization that the apartheid system, or separate development as they prefer to call it, was no longer sustainable.
Yes, in fact, he apologized and said that
I read the letter he wrote.
He was a party to it, but he got an earlier realization that it was wrong. And he apologized. His last designation was deputy president. So he was recognized as the deputy president of South Africa because that was his last official designation. And he was the last president of apartheid South Africa.
Yeah, two of them, both himself and
P.W. Botha?
No. When Nelson Mandela was sworn in as president in May of 1994 at the Union Buildings in Pretoria, Thabo Mbeki and F.W. de Klerk were sworn in as the two deputy presidents. A couple of years later, F.W. de Klerk decided to resign from the office, and he then had a single deputy president. Incidentally, the National Party, which was the party that formally announced apartheid as a policy in 1948, has since disintegrated and vanished into the Indian and Atlantic Oceans.
In fact, on two occasions, he apologized. He apologized. In fact, before he died,
he left a letter. I read it.
Before he died, he still apologized. That once again, he's very sorry for the pains that.
It was a video recording that was released by his foundation. He died of cancer.
Cancer, yes.
Unfortunately. So rest in peace.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you too.
It's been a pleasure as always. We'll take a break now. When we return, our conversation will begin. Don't go away.
The COVID-19 pandemic that took the world by storm in 2020 devastated several economies and plunged nations into recession. Emerging from the COVID-19 lockdown era, countries are gradually picking up from the effects of the pandemic. Economic activities are gradually reverting to normal as the world knew it. Brick by brick, the Nigerian government is rebuilding several aspects of the economy that will make the country attractive for foreign investments. The government believes that the environment is fertile for the global business community to invest in Nigeria. The Nigeria International Partnership Forum, organized by the Nigerian government on the sidelines of the Paris Peace Summit, provided the opportunity for the federal government to showcase Nigeria's immense potentials to the world. In attendance were top government functionaries from Nigeria and France, the global business and investment community, diplomats, civil society organizations, as well as Nigerian, French, and international media organizations. The keynote address by President Muhammadu Buhari was the prompter for a wide range of discussions focusing on security, regional stability, trade, and industrialization. It was also an opportunity to reset false and distorted narratives about Nigeria, shed light on efforts, initiatives, and successes achieved in both the public and private sectors as the country charts a trajectory from the COVID-19 induced economic downturn. What are the takeaways from the forum for Nigeria? Are there timelines to the expectations of possible benefits from the forum? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will be speaking to the issues in a moment.
Thank you very much, Ekede Undulwe, for that backgrounder. With us in the studios now to discuss the wider ramifications of the forum, we'd like to welcome the Honorable Minister of Power, Abubakar Aliyu. Honorable Minister, a pleasure to have you this morning.
Thank you. It's my pleasure too.
Also here with us in the studios, back again this week, is Malam Garba Shehu, Senior Special Assistant to the President of Media and Publicity. Malam Garba, delighted to have you this morning.
Good morning and thank you.
Okay. And Dr. Ajayi is also our guest this morning. He is the Secretary, African Business Roundtable. Dr., delighted to welcome you to our studios.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning.
All right. Okay, let's begin with the Senior Special Assistant to the President. I recall last week when you were our guest and we were discussing the separate subject matter, of course, related to the President's visit, that's to say, COP26. We joked that, I mean, you were away for well over a couple of weeks. And this, of course, was one of the events that took place in Paris. But give us a sense of what the Partnership Forum was all about. Another roadshow, or this time an investment forum dedicated to showcasing what Nigeria really has?
All of the above. Because really the President had okayed this program for the Nigerian government in Paris, and it had intended to attack all three issues you have raised. Now, one, present Nigeria to investors, and also present Nigerian investors to their counterparts. So it's a win-win thing for both countries. Their investors and are interfacing with the leaders of government in attendance. And second, to also throw a spotlight, global spotlight, on what the government is doing with the security in the country. A lot of what is happening is not out there in the domain, especially in French-speaking world. Here we are surrounded by French-speaking countries, and all the time the effort of the President is to see how do we get better understanding. And knowing how it works globally, maybe it's good you use France as the metropolitan headquarters, and talk to the French world, and expectedly it will cascade down to the continent. And so matters of security are important because for every investor who wants to bring their money into the country, the question is, how safe am I? Physical security, but also in terms of security for their own money, repatriation of profits and all of that, or they want to pack out and go, how can they get back money? So all of the leaders of the Nigerian government dealing with those elements, Central Bank of Nigeria, leaders of government in finance, infrastructure, we had the minister and all of that. So they told the Nigerian story as it is to the French investing community, so that one, we generate enlightenment about development that is happening in our country, opportunities that are present in the country, what they stand to gain, and our own people also learning from them what to gain. I think basically these are the three key, strategies that we had in mind when we went there.
I was just wondering, in the course of the interaction, I imagine that you sat through it all. What kind of clarifications did the other side seek? What kind of misconceptions, if any, came out?
Well, as I said earlier, security is an important question because they need their reassurance. And there are also questions that had been raised substantially on repatriation. And the governor of Central Bank was really on hand and had tackled enormously those issues. And I would also report that the matters of the Nigerian creative industry, investment in Nollywood and things, like that, Kannywood, they generated a lot of interest, perhaps far beyond our own expectation. And we expect that positive developments may ensue in that from that direction.
Okay, thank you, Malam Garba Shehu. And takeaways from that forum, which the Minister of Information said is going to be a continuous, program. Let's now turn to the Honorable Minister of Power, Abubakar Aliu. The forum has been described as a huge success, actually. Let's have your take on the takeaways of the forum, and how did you present Nigeria's case to foreign investors? No country can develop without power.
Thank you very much for this question. And Alai Garba has given the background. So actually, the way the forum was structured was that we showcase what we are doing in the area of security, in the area of finance, and the area of infrastructure. So perhaps I may start by giving a background on the situation in the country as regard to all these areas that we have mentioned. And this is actually what we have gone there to talk to them. If you look back in the 70s, of development plans in the 70s, which you saw government that was determined to invest in infrastructure and security and other areas of development. But unfortunately, we did not keep pace with the growing population and development in the country. So this led to a deterioration of our infrastructure for over 3 decades, since we have not been given enough attention to it. Now, basically, it's safe to say that Nigeria has gone into slumber for over 30 years, until when the present government came in
the power sector.
In the whole sector. It was, in fact, I participated in a panel where we talked about general infrastructure, power, roads, and other sectors, transportation, airport, railway. And so we needed to tell them what we have been doing, the reforms that this government is, the country is undergoing in all these sectors, reform on the laws, reform on the regulations, and things like that. So we needed to tell them in order to give them confidence on what we have been doing, and also to tell them that the challenges are so enormous, and the challenges are presenting areas where investors can come in and key in, and there are also an investment opportunities. So these were the things we were able to showcase, and what this present government is doing since coming on board in 2015 in the areas of road, for instance. We were able to tell them actually the road infrastructure is undergoing serious development. Over 13,000 kilometers of roads is undergoing construction, with over 850 road construction going on. And there are also gaps where they can come in and fill in, and this presents investment opportunities. So, and the reforms going on in the power sector, the whole value chain is undergoing transformation, and so, but the government cannot do it alone. So we need them to come in and partner with us. It is a different government now. It's not like we used to be before. This government has given enormous attention to these areas. So this is basically what we have gone there to talk with them about.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Ajayi, let's have your take on the forum. Was it a gathering of who is who, and if so, what did you pick out?
Thank you so much. Like the background given by Malam Gabashiu and the Honorable Minister, the Nigerian International Partnership Forum represents a model of partnership between government and the business and the international community to advance Nigeria's economic diplomacy and development. And discussion at the forum, focus on the inextricable link between security and development. We don't need to go far about this, because basically, when you can't be discussing Nigeria without discussing security. And the security is the first concern of all, is the major thing in all concerns. So basically, investors want to be sure about the environment in which they are going to operate in. So the issue of security was top of the agenda. In that context, we had the National Security Advisor speaking elaborately on the challenges we are facing in charge of security in Nigeria, measures to overcome it, and the progress we've made, challenges that we overcome, the challenges that we are facing, and more importantly, how partnerships could help to bridge the gap. So that's security. We had President Buhari, Special Envoy to Chad, Alhaji Baba Gana Kingibe, and from the African Union, because now we are not just looking at national security, we are looking at threats. We are to emerging and persistent threats to national security, to regional security, in which the African Union plays a major role. So that's as far as security is concerned. And the major takeaway from that is that there's a sense of appreciation of what the Nigerian government is doing, and security is something that needs serious partnership at different levels. At the national level, bilateral levels, multilateral levels, involving more than 3, 4, 5 countries. So that's the starting point for as far as security is concerned on that issue. We see in the coming days we will see more engagements around that, just like the National Security Advisor said in Paris. Now on the economy. The message to the international business community was shared by both the Nigerian government and the Nigerian business leaders, the business leaders of the Nigerian, the business leaders of the Nigerian business community. Like you said, it was a gathering of who and who, really, from the Nigerian business community side. Not just managers, but owners of top businesses. The top leaders of the Nigerian business community were there, and they were very frank, about the challenges of operating in the Nigerian environment. But at the same time, they were very optimistic about the prospect of investing in Nigeria. One of them said a while ago that Nigeria is the world's best kept secret, and that's a fact. The type of money, the type of profit you make in Nigeria, you really can make it elsewhere. Of course, you have to just oppose that against the context of the risk involved in the environment and the informality of the large informal sector that we have. And by the way, that was another issue in France. But the step by step, leaders, regulators, the central bank governor, speaking on the macro monetary stability and the financial system stability, and other key economic ministers, took time to brief the international business community about what is going on. I think the presence of the Nigerian business leaders, reinforced the confidence of the international business community that, if these ones are doing it in Nigeria, then, it gives us a measure of confidence to see how we can come in as well. For the government, I think it's a major plus in the area of infrastructure. And that's what the Honorable Minister of Power has said. The type of spending the government, the type of spending the government is doing in infrastructure is mind-boggling. Daring projects in road, in rail, in power. So the message was well received by the international business community, and in the coming days, we're going to be seeing more interest. All I would just say is that international investors are becoming increasingly excited about the prospect of investing in Nigeria as a result of the Nigerian International Partnership Forum. I think I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, they're crazily, excited about investing in Nigeria. Yeah. Talking about the economy and the ease of doing business in this country, as we continue to roll international foreign investors to Nigeria, how can our indigenous companies, have better access to these opportunities that are being offered to foreign investors back home here?
Well, it's a package. Ideally, it's not a discriminatory something against Nigerian domestic investors, because we have incentives, a lot of incentives that the government is giving to businesses generally, but for international investors, there could be other additional. It's done everywhere in the world. Tax holidays. You want to come in. There are measures to entice you to come in. But having said that, in the last couple of years, the engagement between the government and the business community, even at the domestic level, has been enormous. Talking about most times when we speak to people, the first thing they tell you is about access to credit, access to credit, access to credit. But in the last 2 years, I've lost count of the number of packages, from the government, either through the central bank governor, through the central bank, through the Ministry of Trade, through the Ministry of Women's Development. There are a couple of all these schemes, and it's coming at a time the whole world is just, did you see the 1.2 trillion infrastructure package by the U.S. government last week? And that's just one. Before then, there's been a 1-point-something trillion, social safety nets, to help on the the COVID-19 pandemic. So government, the days of, if subsidies work, you go in there. If stimulus packages work, you go in there. The day of, just the market forces determine everything. Yes, markets will still determine a lot of things. But there are times there will be market failures. And with market failures, you need a higher power to come in from somewhere. So to help little businesses in Nigeria, the access to credit is being dealt with, and increasingly at that rate. The only challenge that we have is that a lot of our businesses are in the informal sector, and it's very difficult to target people that are not registered, that the economy does not capture as operating in it. So suggestions that we now have on the table is that there should be a bold effort to formalize those who are already in the formal sector, so that they will be captured in the formal economy and be able to to access facilities that the government is giving in the formal economy.
Okay, well, Dr. Thank you very much for the information that you have provided. But the more, of course, you gave out information, the more issues you also tried to generate. That's the informality of the aspects of the Nigerian economy. And I hope someday we'll have the opportunity of interrogating that, because if you are having MSMEs also growing in leaps and bounds, then that also tells you that they could be targeted. We're having another minister of the Federal Republic join us for this conversation. He's with us via Zoom. He's the Honorable Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Ali Issa Patami. Honorable Minister, pleasure to have you with us this morning.
Thank you for having me today.
Okay, so we'll welcome you and then we'll launch you straight into the conversation. From your own perspective, what was the major takeaway, or what were the major takeaways from the Nigeria International Partnership Forum?
Thank you very much for asking this very important question. And prior to that, I have listened to the presentation and the response made by the Senior Special Assistant to Mr. President on Media and Publicity, and also my colleague, the Minister of Power, and also our officer in charge of the investment as well. I will not repeat what they have said except where necessary. And however, based on what I can say as our major achievements from this Nigeria International Partnership Forum, number one is promoting the image of our country. With all the challenges we are having in Nigeria, the way our image is being portrayed outside is even worse than reality. We were able to engage investors and inform them honestly about the image or the situation in Nigeria. So this is number one achievement. Many of them now understand that the image of the country is much, much better than what it is being portrayed. Secondly, our ability to convince many investors, potential investors, to come to Nigeria and invest. Because even before the end of the session, after each and every presentation, you will discover that there are many potential investors that will come to the federal government officials and talk to them about their willingness to come and invest in Nigeria. This is indeed another major achievement of that investment forum. Thirdly, networking. During the event, we were able to network with other potential investors and experts from France. Some, they are willing to partner with us, even not through investment, so that we will be able to build many sectors, some even through knowledge transfer and many more. So this is the third one, which I think is very important. We have established a very strong network where we will be able to keep in touch with them and at the same time to continue to benefit from what they have, and sometimes to even share ideas where necessary. This is number three. Number four also, which to me is also very important, we were able to show to them the progress we have made so far when it comes to security, when it comes to infrastructure, like in my area, broadband penetration and many more. This is another major achievement which we are able to achieve there. So in summary, these are some of the achievements we were able to achieve during this Nigeria International Partnership Forum, which to me, it is indeed a milestone to our ability to attract investors to come to Nigeria and invest.
Okay, talking about bringing investors to come to Nigeria, since COVID-19 shook the world, technology practically took over everything across the world. And can you tell us how Nigerians can leverage on the interactions at the forum that you had with foreign investors, and how can it drive the much needed industrialization that we are looking at here?
Sorry, please.
Did you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yes, I said since COVID-19 shook the world, technology practically took over every aspect of human life. And can you tell us, based on your discussions at the forum, how Nigerians can leverage on the International Partnership Forum and, you know, the much needed industrialization that is much needed in this country now? And what are the foreign investors coming with into the country?
Okay, thank you very much. Firstly, during this session, I was able to explain to them what the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari has been doing, particularly in the area of digital economy and digital technologies. Firstly, We have explained to them the various national policies developed by the current administration, like Nigeria or National Digital Economy Policy and Strategy for a Digital Nigeria, Nigeria National Broadband Plan 2020-2025, National Policy on Virtual Engagements in the Federal Public Institution, National Policy on the Promotion of Indigenous Content in the Telecommunications Sector. During the presentation, I was able to represent the federal government of Nigeria and explain to them about the various policies we have in order to transform our digital economy sector and the opportunities we have for investment. Firstly, we explained to them the penetration of broadband in our country. Before the coming of this administration, broadband penetration in the country was relatively around 25%. Within the second tenure of President Muhammadu Buhari, just within 1 year, we were able to increase broadband penetration by more than 10%. Secondly, we also explained to them the various challenges inherited within the sector and the effort of the current administration to handle the challenges like the issue of critical national infrastructure, and secondly, the issue of vandalization of the critical infrastructure as well, and the approval of Mr. President to various security institutions to protect the investment, and thirdly, multiple taxation issues that are being addressed. And at the same time, we explain to them the issue of right of way and the intervention of government to harmonize right of way and to make it much, much cheaper than more than 90% of our countries in the world. So we were able to explain to them the effort of government so far and the enabling environment that has been provided and the market we have, particularly today now in Nigeria as the largest economy in Africa and the most populous country in Africa as well. We have been blessed with digital native youth that understand digital technology. And at the same time, we show to them that coming to Nigeria to invest in the digital economy sector by implication is just like dominating the whole of African continent, starting with West Africa and Central Africa. In Nigeria, we are blessed with population of over 200 million people, and Nigeria is the gateway of West Africa. So if you invest in Nigeria, you have access to over 200 million people within the country, and you are at the gateway of West Africa, where you have another additional 200 million people. And at the same time, Nigeria is the gateway to Central Africa, where you have another additional 150 million people. So if you add Nigeria, remaining West African countries, plus Central Africa, that will give you access to 550 million people. And if you look at Nigeria geographically, it is at the center of Africa relatively. With this, you will have access to around 1.37 billion people in Africa. So we were able to show to them the enabling environment we have in Nigeria, the market we have in Nigeria, and the proximity of dominating West Africa on one hand, Central Africa on the other, and your ability to expand your business to all other African countries from Nigeria, which is relatively at the center of Africa. So with this, most of them were convinced that Nigeria is the best place to invest. And the earlier they come to Nigeria to invest, the better for all of them. There is no doubt that they have been convinced beyond reasonable doubt that there is no any other market better than Nigeria today, not only in Africa, but globally. Because Nigeria, we are blessed with the population, with the economy, and with the need to promote our environment. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister of Communications and Digital Economy. We'll come back to you later in the course of the conversation. Now back to the Abuja studios. I want to bring in again the Minister in charge of Power, Abubakar Aliu. What is it that we are marketing as investment opportunities in the power sector?
Well, as you may be aware, the power sector is undergoing reform, and reform takes time to complete. So the NESI, the Nigerian Electricity Supply Industry, is where all this takes place, and the value chain in the
supply of electricity in the country. It starts from the generation to the distribution through the transmission, as you are all aware. And the major challenge that we're having in this sector is the quality of the supply of electricity and the illiquidity in the sector. So as at present, there is massive investment going in directly from the government and through bilaterals. As you may be aware of the NTEM, that is the Transmission Expansion Project 1, which we're having bilaterals with some of our partners investing in the upgrading of the transmission, where we are having challenges in transmission and the distribution. The generation, even though we have some challenges, but it's not as much as the one we have on the transmission and the distribution. So the challenge of illiquidity in the sector is what we have been trying to address through various means. For instance, the program of the meter access, where we intend to distribute 6 million meters to consumers. And the program is ongoing. In the first phase, we have already distributed up to 900,000 meters. This would create liquidity in the sector. But as it is, the investment being made from generating the electricity is not being matched by what the customers pay. And there is a gap in between. And government has to come in and fill in the gap. So gradually, we are looking at ways to remove all these bottlenecks so that the market can thrive. So the challenges are presenting themselves as opportunities, like I have already investment opportunities.
That's precisely why I'm asking the question, Honorable Minister. Because if you look at the two critical aspects of the power value chain, transmission and distribution, that's where we appear to have the greatest challenges. Generation appears okay, although they have issues with gas pricing, availability of gas from time to time. That's for the thermal plants. But what was and will be the focus of our pitch to get foreign investors in, for instance, as an outcome of this forum? I'm asking the question because the issue has been highlighted on a number of occasions that, fine, Siemens, of course, is playing its own part in transmission, so we would not displace Siemens. But if you were to come to distribution, are we asking them to come in as equity owners? Are we asking them to come in as managers? Because one of the issues we have in the distribution sector is that you have insufficient financing, and then you have insufficient managerial disposition. Otherwise, why would it be the federal government that will be supplementing the discos with the provision of meters, with the provision of all kinds of facilities that you require, whether a transformer or otherwise? So what do we need to do with respect to getting these foreign investors? What doors are we opening for them, let's say, in the disco environment?
Well, thank you for this question, and the way you are asking the question with so much interest, and to the extent that you have become even emotional in the so
no, it's not been emotional. I mean,
no, I understand.
Articulating the issues.
I understand. Yeah.
Because
So,
we've talked about. I'll give you an example.
No, I have
we've talked
heard you.
about discos and metering and so on and so forth.
I'm coming.
Yes.
Yeah, I have heard you. You have been emotional. It's okay. We have always been too when it comes to some of these issues. there are really challenges, and we are looking at them seriously in order to surmount them. You know, the sector is being guided by regulations, which is handled by NAC, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Agency. And to some extent, it's not always up to the government, because it is the law that is being used to achieve what we are targeting at. So, and it's the privatization law that set up this discourse, and what it means, the distribution aspect is being solved. The responsibility is being done by these companies, guided by laws. So what we are doing as government is to revisit these laws. Are there gaps in the laws? To look at them and see how we are going to temper with them to suit the current reality. For instance, the act that was done in 2005 is being reviewed now. It has gone second reading, past second reading in the Senate. It is now being called to come and do the public hearing. So these are all measures that are being done. It has taken a long time. We are looking at it, whether these laws that we are currently working with, what are the flaws in it? So something is being done. But in terms of government coming in, government has to come in order for people to have this electricity in the meantime. So, but gradually, like I told you, the reform is an ongoing thing, and it takes time. So hopefully very soon we will sort out this problem that we have been looking into. Yes, I agree with you. The major challenges we are having is on the transmission and majorly on the distribution part of the value chain. And many things have been done to ensure that all these bottlenecks have been addressed.
Okay, talking about government intervention, in the past 7 years, the CBN has kept the power sector from collapsing with more than 1.3 trillion naira. And recently, the federal government is planning to spend 3 billion naira on the power sector in the next 24 hours and end subsidy in December 2021. It's just around the corner, peeping in. So what does it mean for businesses and consumers?
Well, thank you, Madam, for this question. And I would like to say that this forum actually is not on power alone. I am prepared to come here to address the Paris Partnership.
Yes.
It's like I'm being ambushed here today. So,
we're just trying to ask questions. Every Nigerian watching would love to ask.
Let me attempt to address this question that you have been asking. I would like to say that recently, I wanted to remove that word you have just mentioned from my vocabulary.
What's that?
You mentioned it. I say I wanted to remove it from my vocabulary. Even whenever you mention a subsidy, and it will just go out in a different form of what you have said.
A lot of controversies out there.
Yeah, so like I told you, we have challenges of illiquidity in the sector. And what the government is trying to do is to create investor confidence, consumer confidence, and the operator confidence in the sector. And this takes time, okay? Government cannot sustain the position it is going through with the sector in terms of interventions all the time. So gradually, government may have to come out of that and allow the market to thrive, whereby we see a lot of trading going on, eligible customer policy, where willing seller and willing buyer, and we create a lot of bilaterals. Even the embed, that is the bulk buyer, that buys and sell, and so it's a temporary measure being done by government to create this confidence for the investors at the generation to generate more electricity. So there are a lot of challenges going on, and we are tackling them head on all round. So I would like to ask you to allow us to continue. As we go on, you'll be seeing a lot of results coming out. I don't want to talk on specific things right now because we are working on them from all angles.
Presley?
Why? You're ambushing me.
And please don't be emotional.
You're ambushing me. I mean, we could get the Honorable Minister to speak, on the number of issues in the power sector. But of course, the relationship with the partnership forum that we are trying to get a link to say, look, what are the gaps in our system? And then how might these gaps, be filled in? It should not be appropriate to be asking the minister, for instance. You have recently, well, not you in particular, but we understand there has been an increase in the price of meters. One-phase and three-phase meters has gone up. Tariff has also gone up, and so on and so forth. But Honorable Minister, will come to you to address this, to say, look, part of the question I asked, which hasn't been addressed, has to do with what window of opportunities can foreign investors see, say, in the distribution end of the power sector? Is it to come in with their equity to say, fine, these companies don't have enough money, so instead of frequently raising the tariff XYZ, bring in your money, take a certain percentage, or take over as managers and so on and so forth. But we'll come back to that.
I think I have addressed that question, where I said that the sector is being guided by law. The law that set up these distribution companies, each time you go in, they go to the courts and they get injunction. So we are looking at the laws to unbundle all the encumbrances there so that we create more confidence, allow the market to thrive at that end. This is what we are doing. The law is being looked into, and I also mentioned to you that even the National Assembly is reviewing the act, which they have sent round copies for people to come, and they have even set a date for the public hearing, which you may go there, because the sector is being controlled by this act. So each player has a backup from that act. No matter what you try to do in terms of tampering with the rules of the game, the act stops you. So it is not up to us to just go in like that and bring. So what we are trying to make sure that we create other measures to ensure that the market thrive down there. Like, for instance, I told you the eligible customer issue. If we allow MBED to release some of the, to reduce the contract between them and the GENCOs, and allow the GENCOs to trade bilaterally with the DISCOs, and allow more players to come in through that. But these are measures that we are doing in the interim until when we are able to sort out all the laws that is bringing the bottleneck as to allow the market to thrive. And so we are looking at it to see whether there are mistakes or that we need more laws, So these are all looked into. So I think that address what you have asked.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable Minister of Power. Back again to Malam Garba Shehu. Malam Garba Shehu, some of the most visible faces of French investment in Nigeria include, of course, Total. Do we have a sense of the profile of some of the corporate giants that were at this forum with Nigeria, other than, say, Total, which, of course, will have its own issues in terms of being thrilled by the Petroleum Industry Act?
Well, yes, you mentioned Total is the biggest French investment in the country. And as you know, while some others in their bracket, some of them are taking a step backwards in even in view of PIA pulling out, say maybe from some areas. Total has not changed in any way, and they are growing, their own. So therefore, it was an opportunity for them to restate this commitment and to say that they are willing to do much more. And let me say that as a background, because President Macron himself had sent an address to the occasion, and it was to say that, well, we want to engage with Nigeria, we want to open it up and expand trade and investment not only that, but also in matters of culture and society. Macron himself had, had done 1 year of internship in Nigeria, and that had himself had, in a way aligned him to our country, the sense of being, having a knowledge of what we are all doing. Now, the important thing then to say is that it was not about which big corporation is there, but what interests were being manifested. The purpose of it all, of course, in the area of investment, is to say that oil is significant, is dominant in so many ways. Nigeria is beyond oil. In fact, the president's address did clearly state that we have diversified the economy. So it's no longer a matter of anticipation or plan that we have diversified. And this economy is so much about agriculture, so much about mining. All of the ministers had displayed all of these things. Minister Pantami spoke to you, ICT being the fastest growing sector in the economy, and told them about the investments. Agriculture and the French people really significantly are interested, including, I remember at an incident which caused laughter in the course of the proceedings, because one guy rose up and said, well, I have a winery, I produce wines. And he asked the president of Nigeria, France-Nigeria Business Forum, Abdul Samad Rabiu, and said, would you invest in my winery? And
I remember that.
It was a lady. And
it could be non-alcoholic wine.
But I'm saying that so much interest, and the railway, and all of these things that have been, the roads, the tolling is being, it's sufficiently explained to them. You can build the roads, you can toll them. The railway is being opened up. Shipping, is big in the region. When Nigeria is controlling 70% of shipping traffic in the country, and people are just opening their mouths and say, well, so where have we been? So I think that the minister has said some of these things. It will take a bit of time, but they will reflect, they will think about all of these things, and they will call for meetings, and these things would take us.
Where were we? And Dotun Ajayi said Nigeria is a well-kept secret. President Buhari was a guest, yes.
The world's best kept
secret. Indeed. President Buhari was with the French President Macron one-on-one. Can you give us an insight into the discussions they had, and what Nigeria stands to benefit from France, especially in the aspect of security?
I said a while ago that Nigeria is around the earliest thing the president, in fact, week 1 of his taking power, was to go to these countries and to speak to them, because if you are not at peace with your neighbors, you cannot be at peace at home. And I think that the establishment of that partnership from the commencement of his administration did help bring them into partnership, including Benin Republic, which is a little bit further than the rest, away from the theater in the northeast, and sent troops and had been part of it. So security is important, because as we've always believed that the relationship between French Africa and France is not of the type that you have between British ex-colonial ruler of some of they are much closer than we are, and sometimes to get things done, here you probably have to start, from there. So this meeting between President Muhammadu Buhari and President Macron it came at a time when that France is beginning to step back a bit, because they're talking about getting out of the G5, although we are not in G5 Sahel, but they are taking away their troops from Mali and all of that. And at a time when the issue is not resolved, people are even talking about escalation, especially in some countries like Mali, the ISWAP challenge in Sub-Sahara and Sahel. So France certainly is needed, their capabilities, and even for repair and the equipment for, we have a large, stock of Alpha jets, French-built Alpha jets, for instance. Some of them, even if it is Tokumbo engine, we can get from France. They have largely grounded their own. I mean, these are things that have been discussed, but I think that the president also doesn't like us talking so much about, procurements in terms of disclosing what you have. And I think it's for strategic reasons. So much has taken place.
A strategic move indeed. Yes,
all right, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation.
COVID-19, that is the black swan of the century, has actually hit the whole world very hard, even the strongest of economies, and Nigeria was not spared. But due to the proactive stance and steps that the president has taken, we've been able to come out quickly. The president has consistently said we must invest in infrastructure, even as we're investing in human capital, that we must invest in infrastructure, because at the end of the day, that is what will bring about a sustainable economic growth. So the president has given us our directive. He has said you must make sure you pay salaries and pay pensions, but you also make sure that the critical projects of roads, railway, airports, bridges, major infrastructure that are meant to drive the growth of the economy, that we consistently invest in them, even if we have to continue to borrow to do so.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, still on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Let's get back to the Honorable Minister in charge of Communications and Digital Economy, Alaisa Potabe. Honorable Minister, I want us to also take a look at the sub-theme of this forum, if not the major theme actually. It says Nigeria International Partnership Forum, Beyond the Pandemic. Now, one of the critical issues that emerged from the pandemic has to do with supply chain disruption. And there's been a lot of focus. I don't know how they are stocking their shelves now for the holiday season, but there were a lot of complaints in the Western world that China, that's the production capital of the world, is unable to meet supply issues. And part of what has also arisen from this is to say, look, perhaps the time has also come to look elsewhere as production centers rather than having the full concentration in China. Are we making a pitch for this ourselves to say, look, yes, you were talking about the position of Nigeria in West Africa and on the African continent. We're a viable alternative for supply productions.
Thank you very much.
As some of my colleagues earlier explained on the platform, that we were able to explain to them the enabling environment being provided by the federal government of Nigeria for production, for supply, and what have you. Most importantly, for example, in my area of digital economy, we engaged with the potential investors in France, and we were able to inform them about the efforts being made by the federal government to make Nigeria not a destination for consuming, but rather a destination for the production. And it is all about providing the enabling environment, which government has been doing that. Furthermore, one of the national policies developed by this administration, which to me is key when it comes to our plan to start production, is the indigenous content national policy on the indigenous content on the telecommunications sector. In that policy, federal government has planned to ensure that in the next 2 years, we will be able to produce the significant part of what we need to consume in this country when it comes to hardware, software, and all the peripheral devices being used. And secondly, in the policy, we have provided so many opportunities for potential investors to invest in Nigeria, and that investment not only to serve the country, but to serve the entire African continent, including some Asian countries. So, as you earlier observed, the challenge when it comes to supply chain, particularly the Asian countries that are far from us, and there are so many challenges. So our plan, looking at the numerous advantages we have, like our location, geographical location, secondly, our cheap labor, and thirdly, our proximity to Asia, to African countries, to Europe, and sometimes to even North America and South America. And fourthly, our ability to accommodate people, the cosmopolitan nature of our country and the cosmopolitan nature of our citizens. With this, we were able to engage them and also convince them that in the next few years, our plan in Nigeria is to be the center of production, particularly in the area of digital technologies. And that is why we have been very proactive in that area. As it is today, Nigeria is the first country in Africa to establish a world-class national center for artificial intelligence and robotics. That center is not just about maybe coming to see the facilities, but rather about research. The center is also about promoting our indigenous technology and also accommodating knowledge transfer. Where we lack the expertise, the center will be able to collaborate with other developed nations so that we will be able to start production of emerging technology facilities in the country. So based on what you have said, not only in the digital economy sector, in all other sectors, in agriculture, there are so many plans of the current administration. And the administration has been working day in, day out to provide the infrastructure, rail, roads, and many more. So I think it is a good observation that so far, so good. With all the challenges being encountered, the progress being made is encouraging. And I do hope that in the next few years, we will be able to take over production and many more from Asian countries and even the developed nations so that Nigeria will play a significant role in that area.
Honorable Minister, I was thinking about international business and during the COVID-19, at the forum, was the Twitter ban part of the conversation and how it affects business in Nigeria?
Yes, I think a question was raised and it was addressed by the chairman of our presidential team on the issue of Twitter, that is the Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Muhammad. He explained to the audience that the reason for that suspension has to do with security. And if you look at it constitutionally, the responsibility of each and every government in Nigeria is that security. Look at the Constitution of Nigeria, 1999, as amended Section 14, subsection 2, Article B, that our primary responsibility as a government is the security and welfare of our citizens. So he was able to explain to them that the main reason that led to that suspension was all about security. And secondly, through our engagements with them, with the Twitter, a lot has been achieved and many issues have been addressed. Most probably out of 12 issues or thereabout, at least 10 of them have been addressed. Only 2 are being addressed now. And I think when the 2 are completely addressed, the committee will convey to the President Muhammad Buhari, for the final approval of the decision to be taken. So far, so good through the engagement. At least most of the critical issues have been addressed by the presidential team, working with them to identify the challenges, come up with the solutions, and ensure that the right thing is being done. Definitely the issue came up and it was addressed and the audience were fully convinced.
All right, thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Back again to the Abuja studios, Dr. Najai of the African Business Roundtable. Again, borrowing from the theme of the forum, which is beyond the pandemic, how well have we positioned ourselves to be a magnet for foreign investment? I know earlier you were talking about the plenitude of the informal sector in our business space. But how is that an impediment, and what else can be done to ramp up the productivity in the MSME subsector?
Thank you so much for that question. Nigeria is such that Nigeria could do much more to contribute more to the global value chain. There are big nations, there are big economies, there are small economies. Nigeria is a big economy, but we are operating at a very little level of our capacity. The population alone, about 200 million population. The natural resources, the weather, the resilience of the people. So, officially, we are the biggest economy in Africa by GDP and also by market size. But where Nigeria should be is such that we should be among the G7, the G8s, with what we have. So now, what are the factors holding us down? Those are the key issues that the administration is unlocking, little by little. I mentioned access to credit the other time. There are other, how to use science and technology to overcome industrial challenges is another thing. Human capital development is another issue. And the boldness required to take on very big projects, like, in the power sector that the Honorable Minister was talking about. I've been hearing about the Mambila Power Project a long time ago. And, I was reading a document and I discovered this is a power project that will be generating about 4,000 megawatts just like that when it's completed. So, a very long time ago, like about 20 years ago, the chairman of ESCOM, like the NEPA in South Africa, was in Nigeria. And he famously declared that it generated 45,000 megawatts. Nigeria was generating like 2,000 megawatts there. So now imagine Nigeria generating 50,000 megawatts today. And we have the capacity to transmit it, the capacity to distribute it. 50,000 megawatts. That's astronomically going to throw Nigeria up, economic hub. So small and medium enterprises, the small ones, you could be a barber in one corner, you could be a tailor in one corner. I've seen a lot of countries, most of the things we see are not produced by big corporations or anything. It's just in your own little corner, you're doing your stuff. You're even exporting. And that's very common in Turkey. Been to so many plants in Istanbul. And I'm like, where's the plant? They say, yeah, we are already there. So the Japan that we're talking about, which is an industrial giant today, did not just start and become, just like that. From the ruins of the Second World War, it was these small enterprises, little companies that now became global giants, producing for domestic consumption, exporting, putting the name of Japan on the map. So Nigeria has all it takes. In fact, the resilience of the Nigerian people alone, combined with the population we have, makes us a natural leader that should be among the G7. So a lot has been happening in the last 6-7 years, and it's still happening. It's an ongoing process. The major message, from Paris is, let's stay engaged. Do what you are doing, keep on doing it. If you are on course, it will now be very clear. Because there are a lot of times that you'll be doing a lot of things. You'll be doing stuffs people don't know outside. Napoleon, at the darkest age of China, Napoleon looked at China and was like, when the old world was not talking to China, it was like, therein lies China, the sleeping giant of the world. Let her sleep, for when she wakes up, the whole world will know. So Nigeria is a sleeping giant. We are just waking up now.
Ready to wake up.
We are waking up. So that's...
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dr. Ajay. I was just wondering, Honorable Minister, back to you. Well, we've indicated that there's been enthusiasm on the part of participants at the forum because clarifications were made. But what, in your opinion, were some of those genuine concerns that we also need to work on back home? And this is bearing in mind geopolitical circumstances. I'm asking this question because oftentimes, yes, the president has gone out. I don't know how many state governors were there. Issues could arise okay, fine. Issues could arise at the sub-national levels. But what were some of the genuine concerns that they raised, and how were these concerns addressed?
Actually, if you look at the whole presentation and the whole concept, it's like we have already known that there have been genuine concerns about investment in Nigeria. So that was what we set out to do, to go and address these concerns on security, the confidence to investors, and what the government is doing. In fact, if I may draw your attention to the panel that I participated, the panel is bridging the infrastructure gap, reforms, result, and the way forward. So this already been done by us going there to address. So in fact, at some point, they were not asking anything because they were just applauding us by what we have presented to them, what this present government is doing in terms of providing the enabling environment for business to thrive, both domestically and foreign investors to come in. Like I told you earlier on, we have been sleeping, just like what my colleague on the panel said, for over 30 years. We have not addressed so many things, and that culminated to the present situation or the pre-present situation that we found ourselves, whereby our roads are all deteriorated. We don't have rails, our airports, electricity. So coming in President Muhammadu Buhari's government in 2015, there has been a kind of awakening of the country from the slumber. And we have been doing a lot in all aspects. Road construction, for instance, if I would tell you, like I told you earlier on, there is construction going on with about over 850 road projects going on all over the country. You see rail construction. We have already finished Lagos, Ibadan, Itape, and Kaduna, Abuja, and we are working on others. Our airports, you can see how the airports are being addressed, the issues there. So power sector, I told you, is also a lot of investment is going in. It's working up, okay? So with, he mentioned Mambila, the cement, they are all active now, you know. Mambila, you can hear just recently, whereby there is some move going on Mambila between us and those that have protracted the contract by the litigation in France. Cement, we have already evaluated, or we have been evaluating the EPC contractors. Very soon, we will order for the equipment, more especially the mobile equipment, because we have some mobile components which will just be manufactured and move in and start using them. So everything is active now. So these are things that we have set out to do up initial, to go there, and because we knew what the concerns were. So we went there to address these concerns, and it was very, very well received.
Okay, Honorable Minister, thank you. Malam Garba Shehu, nothing is perfect. And they've called this forum a huge success.
Yes.
But there are some gray areas, I believe. So what are the low-hanging fruits from the forum? In 20 seconds.
Manufacturing. You know, the point was proved by our private sector. 7 years back, this country was importing cement. Now we're a net exporter. So if you come here, Nigeria, Cameroon, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, we produce the world's 75% of cocoa. England, UK, America, Netherlands, they do 75% of chocolates. So why don't we reverse these things? So there are things that they easily can do. Even real estate, establishment of hospitals, roads, and so many things. So it's all there, and I think that the enthusiasm the minister has talked about would see some of this coming through as low-hanging fruits.
All right, on that note, we'd like to thank all our guests for being with us on the program this morning. Joining us via Zoom was the Honorable Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Isa Ali Patami. Thank you very much for being our guest this morning. Also here in the studios, we'd like to thank the Honorable Minister of Power, Abubakar Ali. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for being our guest. As I said, we'll have the opportunity of asking you later on why the price of meters, have gone up from what they were previously. Dr. Ajayi, the Secretary of the African Business Roundtable, deep thanks for your being our guest this morning. And last but not the least, Malam Garba Shehu, Senior Special Assistant to the President of Media and Publicity. We appreciate you for being our guest. All right, so that does it for our conversation segment. Let's go over now to our foreign desk.
A political agreement has been signed in Sudan, enabling Abdallah Hamdok to be reinstated as Prime Minister. Sudan's top general Abdel Fattah Abdurrahman signed the deal on Sunday with Hamdok to restore the transition to civilian rule nearly a month after a military coup. The 14-point deal, signed in the presidential palace in Khartoum, also provides for the release of all political prisoners detained during the coup and stipulates that a 2019 constitutional declaration be the basis for a political transition. Meanwhile, rioting broke out at The Hague on Saturday over the Dutch government's new coronavirus measures. The Netherlands re-entered 3 weeks of partial lockdown last Saturday and is now planning to ban unvaccinated people from entering some venues. 5 police officers were injured during the clashes at The Hague, with 1 taken to hospital suffering concussion and 2 suffering hearing damage from loud fireworks. Elsewhere, an estimated 40,000 people crowded the streets of Vienna in the country's biggest coronavirus-related protest to date. In another development, around 15,000 people protested in Zagreb against the Croatian government's coronavirus measures. From Monday, only people with COVID passports will be allowed to enter government and public buildings in Croatia.
All right, so that's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. We appreciate your being with us. The program returns tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Until then, do take care of yourselves. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I am Jumai Yusuf. Before we go, don't forget to join NTA in the fight against the rape and rapists. Have a wonderful day.